Welcome to Ian Maigua Pictures. My name is Ian Maigua, and today I'm going to teach you how to animate a bouncing ball. As an animator, I learned how to animate the bouncing ball first because it was a simple animation that taught me 4 important animation principles. These principles are arcs, timing, spacing, and squash and stretch. As we're animating the bouncing ball, I'm going to show you how to apply all 4 of these principles into the bouncing ball animation cycle. Once we're done, you'll be able to apply all 4 of these principles to any of your animations that you want to produce in the future. So let's begin. Before we continue with the tutorial, I'd like to recommend you to download the Bouncing Ball Animation Pack. In this animation pack, it'll include a bouncing ball reference chart that we'll be using for this animation. Once you've downloaded the pack, you can then proceed with the tutorial. The first thing I'm going to do is to title this project Bouncing Ball Animation. Then I'm going to change the frame rate to 24 frames per second, and I'm also going to change the camera size to be 1280 by 720, which is HD. Next thing we need to do is to create 5 layers for this animation project. In order to do that, go to Window, scroll down and click the Timeline button. Once it opens up, you'll need to add the individual layers for this project. Now to do that, you'll need to click this green button right here. Now the 5 layers that we're going to add for this project will be arcs, background line, timing, spacing, and final animation. After creating the 5 layers, you'll need to open up your bouncing ball reference chart that you downloaded in your bouncing ball animation pack. You'll be using this reference chart throughout this animation. The first step in creating a bouncing ball animation is to create its arcs. Now in life, all actions with a few exceptions follow an arc or slightly circular path. This is true for humans, animals, or any kind of motion out there. Alright, let's check out the walk cycle animation that I did last week in order to see how I applied this arc principle into that animation. Now as we're previewing the animation, you can see Batman walking from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. But if you notice, he's following that arc rule. Now look at the new arc that I created and you'll see that he is indeed following that arc. And that's basically the idea. All motion will follow some sort of arc or circular path. Let's apply this principle into our bouncing ball animation. Alright, I'm going to draw the arcs for this bouncing ball animation. However, after I'm done, I'm going to come back and review. Now, as we look at the arcs that I created for this bouncing ball animation test, you'll notice that I created 4 arcs. Now, the first arc is the highest, and as we progress towards the right, it becomes smaller and smaller. That's because of the rule of momentum. When you bounce the ball at first, it's going to go high, and then the second bounce will become lower and lower and lower. And you'll notice that towards the end, I put a straight line. That's because when the ball is finished bouncing, it won't just bounce and then stop. It'll keep rolling after a while, and due to friction, it'll come to a complete stop. That's why I drew that line. Now that we've covered the arcs, we'll need to move to the next step, which is timing. When it comes to timing, it's all about figuring out how long will your animation be. Will it be 5 seconds, 10 seconds? That decision is up to you. Now for me personally, I decided to make this whole animation about 7 seconds. For each of the arcs in the animation, they last for about 1 second. And in the straight line, it also lasts for about 1 second. However, after that second is done, I'm going to hold the ball for about 2 seconds, which will make the whole animation about 7 seconds. You might remember in the beginning of the tutorial when I told you that I was going to animate at 24 frames per second. That means since this whole thing will last for 7 seconds, it's going to take me 168 frames. Now there are 2 options. You can either do it on 1s or 2s. When I mean 1s, that means that each frame is unique. It has a different image, while on twos, you repeat an image twice. Now, the good thing about using twos is that you can save time, and when you play the animation, it will still look smooth. So personally, for me, I decided to do it in twos. So instead of drawing 24 frames for each of the arcs, I'm just going to draw 12. And personally, I usually use twos on all my animation, with probably the exception of lip syncing, because someone can talk pretty fast. So the only time I might use a one is when I'm animating a character who's talking. The next step is to move on to spacing. Now, when it comes to spacing, it's all about how close or how far each drawing is from each other. Now, if you want your animation to move faster, you need to have fewer drawings, but they need to be farther away from each other. Now, if you want to slow down an animation, you need to have more drawings, but they need to be close to each other. I've created an animation test that will help you to better understand how timing and spacing work together and why spacing plays a big part in any animation. Now, in this animation, I have 3 types of spacing. I have a slow in, which means that I start off fast and then I slow down. I have an even spacing, and I also have a slow out, which means I start off slow, but then I increase my speed. Now, the first coin, which is in red, is a slow in. As it's moving from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, you'll notice it starts off fast and then slows down. For the black coin, it has an even spacing. And for the blue coin, it starts off slow but increases its speed. Now that you have an idea of spacing, let's apply it to the bouncing ball animation. Alright, I'm going to create the spacing for this bouncing ball cycle, and after I'm done, we're going to come back and review. Now you should remember that I said I was going to animate on twos. So that means for a 1 second arc, I just need to have 12 drawings. Now you'll notice at the bottom and at the top of each of the arcs, I have a few of my drawings close to each other. The reason why I want to do that is because when the ball starts off or when it will squash, I want it to be compressed. I want it to slow down. And when it reaches the arc, I also want it to slow down as well. Now, if you look at the sides of each arc, you'll notice that the drawings are more spaced apart. That's because I want the ball to slow out or to increase speed. Because when you animate a bouncing ball, it'll first start off slow, then increase, then become slow again at the top of the arc, and then increase its speed as it goes down towards the bottom. And it will keep repeating this cycle for each of the arcs. Now let's look at the line. You'll notice that the ball will slow down. That's because I'm using a slow in spacing. So I have a few drawings at the beginning, and then as we move towards the right, there will be more tick marks towards the end of the line. Each of these tick marks on this bouncing ball animation represent where the ball will be. Now the next and final step is to create the actual ball using squash and stretch. The reason why it's called squash and stretch is because characters and objects are shown to squash, become flattened when affected by weight or gravity, and stretch, become elongated when affected by momentum or other forces. Now, a key principle in squash and stretch is to maintain the volume. So you maintain the volume while changing the shape. To better illustrate that, I want you to look at the illustration below. In this illustration, you'll notice that in the anticipation pose, the character is squashing down because gravity is pushing against him. But as he's moving towards the jump pose, his body is stretching. Now, when he's in mid-air, he's pushing his body and legs towards each other, so it's squashing again. And then when he's going down, when he's in the fall position, he's stretching again. So you see an example of squash and stretch throughout this illustration. Now the key idea is that person who created this maintained volume. And that's the concept of it. You add squash and stretch and maintain volume. Now let's apply this to the bouncing ball animation. In this bouncing ball animation, we're going to have three distinct shapes. The first one will be the normal shape. The second one will be the squashed shape. And the third one will be the stretched shape. Now, as I'm flipping through these drawings, you'll notice that the volume will stay the same, but the shape will change. You'll notice on each circle there's a red dot. The reason why I use that red dot is to use it as a guideline for when I'm going to go and place the circles. I want to make sure that they match and align with the tick marks that I created during the spacing stage for this animation. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in time lapse. However, after I'm done, we're going to come back and review. I started off animating this bouncing ball animation with a normal circle. Then I decided to squash it. And by squashing it, as we keep moving towards the right, you'll notice that it'll start to stretch as we're moving towards the top of the arc. Now, as we reach the top of the arc, the circle will become normal again. And as we go down, it'll start to stretch again. And as we hit the bottom of the arc, it'll squash. I repeat this cycle for the next three arcs. Now, as we approach the line, I'm going to use the slow in technique. The ball will start out fast and then gradually slow down as we move from the left side to the right side of the line. Now that you know how to animate a bouncing ball, let us look at the final preview for this animation. And this is how you animate a bouncing ball. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and if you haven't seen my last video on walk cycles, I highly recommend that you check it out. You can also follow us on our social media sites in order to keep up with the channel. And if you want to learn more animation skills, you can check out my site, www.ianmigwapictures.com.